The year is 1988. Inspired by the novel Hardwired by Walter John Williams, one man made an attempt to harness the gritty realism of the 1980s cyberpunk genre in a tabletop role-playing game. This man was Mike Pondsmith, and his game would go on to be one of the lead pieces of media regarding the genre. Drawing parallels to other cyberpunk titles such as Blade Runner and William Gibson's Neuromancer, Cyberpunk took place in a futuristic world ravaged by capitalism and corporatism. The first game was called Cyberpunk 2013, with later versions being titled Cyberpunk 2020, Cyberpunk V3, which takes place in the 2030s, and Cyberpunk Red, taking place in 2045. Each edition would continue building upon the world Mike built, eventually leading to the development of Cyberpunk 2077 and Cyberpunk Edgerunners, a video game and anime respectively taking place in the 2070s. There are many themes in the titles ranging from the evils of corporatism to corruption and politics, but the one that comes to mind for me is what makes you a legend. Each piece of media deals with meeting and becoming legend, and every legend in the Cyberpunk universe shares one key detail: power. So today we will be discussing some of the most powerful people seen in the Cyberpunk titles, covering everything from the original TTRPGs to the game and anime. We don't have time to cover every single legendary character in this incredible universe, so we will only be covering 10. They are not in any order as they are all powerful in their own regards. If you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing. We're on our way to 10k and I could not be more grateful. Anyways, enough yapping, let's get into the video. First appearing in Cyberpunk 2020, Morgan Blackhand has become synonymous with the solo role. Blackhand was second in command of his cyber soldier unit in the Second Central American War. During a mission, he was forced to temporarily take lead of his unit after the commander went psycho, causing said commander to seriously hate him. He was 18 at the time. Over the next few years, this unit would go on to do some serious work. In 2008, they would rescue Brenda Melendez from a massacre, having Blackhand vow to make sure she always had work whenever she required it. A year later, he would shatter his right arm, having it amputated by a field medic named Mike McRae. This formed a respect for the medic, as Blackhand would continue communicating with him for years. Shortly after losing his arm, he returned to the US, finding that he felt seriously out of place. He found it hard to find work as he was trained to kill people and perform demolitions, not desk work. He would remain homeless in New York for months before grabbing the attention of a notorious booster gang leader. This man learned to hate Blackhand, a pattern we see in his story. This led Morgan to swiftly kill him, doing such a good job that he caught the eye of a Militech recruiter walking by. This began Morgan Blackhand's work for Militech, doing operations as a mercenary for them as well as other clientele. Early in the 2010s, Blackhand would be hired to be the personal bodyguard of one Dexter Dobbs. Dobbs was a unique genius who specialized in the development of technological applications of the body. He taught him about self-defense and warfare and would remain friends with him, eventually having Dexter fine-tune his gear. In the 2010s, Blackhand would also have multiple run-ins with Andrew Boa Boa Wayland, someone who almost made this list himself, and garner a brief romantic relationship with Rogue Amendiaras. In 2019, he stopped an attempted kidnapping of Carrie Uradine, a former member of the band Samurai. Blackhand beat the ever-living out of the 5 attempted kidnappers and single-handedly turned them over to the feds. It would have been so easy just to kill them, but in taking them alive, he managed to publicly embarrass both the group of kidnappers and their sponsor. This is around the time that a one-sided rivalry would develop between Blackhand and Adam Smasher. You see, Smasher had a personal belief that, quote, metal is better than meat. Blackhand's success lived in his head rent-free, seeing as he was insanely popular and powerful without having his entire body borked up. Smasher would attempt multiple times to fight Blackhand one-on-one, but he was ignored every single time due to one fact: Blackhand saw someone else as his rival. This man was Kenichi Zaburo, an Arasaka-employed bodyguard and one of the most lethal solos in the world. In a very humorous event, Morgan Blackhand was named the #1 solo in the world at the Solo of Fortune Annual Awards. He also wrote the Enforcer's Handbook, a guide to anyone wanting to operate as a solo, selling over 1 million copies in the year of its release. In 2022, he was convinced to join Militech in their operations during the Fourth Corporate War. He was given funding to build a team to oversee the security of the Ocean Technology and Energy Corporation, or OTEC for short, and hired a number of incredibly skilled freelancers to answer to him, one being Dexter Dobbs. During this war, Morgan received one of his most iconic weapons, the Malorian Arms Assault Cannon. This prototype weapon fired 75 caliber smart grenades. It was rocket powered, laser guided, and had a 12-shot box magazine. Later that year, Arasaka would complete their development of the Soul Killer 2.5. In retaliation, Militech would hire Raish Bartmoss to help destroy it, but Bartmoss had a very heavy hatred for corporations. Blackhand would go on to stop Raish Bartmoss from attacking Militech. Militech then contacted Alt Cunningham to perform the op, having her convince Raish and Blackhand to help her. Together, they would find the location of Soul Killer, but this would come with grave consequences. Raish's location was tracked by Arasaka, and a team was sent to take him out. Blackhand attempted to send a team to intercept, but failed in stopping them. This would be one of Blackhand's largest failures. In 2023, Blackhand would take part in one of the most impactful events in the history of the Cyberpunk universe. He joined a Militech team with the goal of assaulting Arasaka Towers and Night City, eliminating any information of Soul Killer. He, along with other operatives like Rogue and Johnny Silverhand, were split into 2 teams. Blackhand led Strike Team Omega, acting as backup in the case Strike Team Alpha, led by Silverhand, and Strike Team Beta failed their objective of destroying the tower with a nuclear device. Blackhand was aware of the fact that Silverhand's team was a decoy and not planned to survive, but he was unaware of the nuclear device they were planting. Blackhand would go on to intercept an Arasaka strike team and then lead a team to the rooftop of the tower to stop a laser uplink from creating a backup of Soulkiller's database. During their evac, Atom Smasher would appear on the roof, taunting them with the still living head of one of their comrades, Shaitan. Blackhand got out of the AV ready to finally fight Atom Smasher, only being angered more by Smasher taunting him over Silverhand's death. Morgan Blackhand then ordered the AV to evacuate without him, and the two would begin their duel. No one knows who won the duel, as the building began to shake from the detonation of the nuclear device. From then on, Blackhand's fate would remain unknown to the population. Many still think he's alive, having seen reports of him popping up around North America. This, along with the fact that the afterlife does not have a drink in his name, seem to hint that he may still be kicking. The most recent bit of information of his whereabouts comes from a news report posted on the World's News Service website in 2077. In it, they talk about a shootout in Japantown where several Lazarus agents were found dead. The only survivor of the incident described the instigator as a portly man with a black cyber arm. So what do we know about Blackhand? He's been a soldier since he was 18, he's been operating since then, homie survived multiple Arasaka attacks as well as the nuclear bomb that destroyed Arasaka towers in 2023, he had cybernetics and weapons that allowed him to go toe-to-toe with Atom Smasher, and he is most likely still operating at well over 100 years old. Pairing his equipment with his unkillable mentality, Morgan Blackhand is the epitome of power and a true legend in the world of Cyberpunk. Appearing in Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, Song So-mi, or Songbird, grew to become one of the most powerful beings in existence due to her exposure to the Black Wall. She grew up in New York City, and around the age of 13 got her hands on a hand-me-down cyberdeck. From then on, she was almost always diving in the net. She lived in a Brooklyn apartment in her teens, learning more and more about hacking. In 2063, she would go on to hack into a Biotechnica fermentation facility in Oregon, boosting her adoration for the craft. Soon after, she would breach a Militech data fort, catching the attention of the new United States Federal Intelligence Agency. Militech had plans to kill her then and there, but were persuaded to instead recruit her by FIA agent Solomon Reed. Reed was dispatched to New York with this goal, and after a few requests and a blackmail attempt, she agreed. Sometime after this, So-mi swore the NUSA oath to President Rosalind Myers, gaining the title of FIA agent. They gave her the codename Songbird, and she trained under Reed. She would go on many missions with Reed and another agent, Alex. In 2069, Songbird and her team were dispatched to Night City as undercover operatives. This is where they saw Kurt Hansen's ascent to power in Dogtown. A year later, they were given the task of neutralizing Murata Azuru, an admiral in the Arasaka Corporation, but were called off by President Myers in an agreement to end FIA operations in the free territory of Night City. They would then begin escorting agents out of the city, eventually only leaving Songbird, Alex, and Reed. This is when Songbird gave Reed an escape plan to get out through a train heading to Southern California. He managed to get onto the train, but then realized that the people in his train car were carrying weapons. He thought he had been made, and this is when Songbird locked the train door behind him, leaving him trapped with a number of Arasaka agents ready to kill him. For the next 5 years, Songbird would do ops for President Myers, breaching the Black Wall multiple times. One breach would have a serious impact on a person, but Songbird wasn't just anyone. She continued to up her cyberware, claiming she felt that she was, quote, slowly losing herself, being taken over by something else. By 2077, her body had sustained so much damage from the Black Wall that she was inches from death. Desperately searching for a cure, she struck a deal with Kurt Hansen, who claimed he had a neural matrix that could cure her. In exchange, she was to deliver President Myers as a hostage. Weeks later, while traveling above the Californian coast in Space Force 1 with the president, Kurt Hansen fired a missile, causing the president's transport to crash into Dogtown. Songbird took the opportunity to contact V through their relic, and they would escort Myers to a safe place in Dogtown. Kurt Hansen would kidnap Songbird in the process. This is where we see the events of Phantom Liberty take place. It's revealed to everyone that So-mi is actually working with Hansen, but she plans on betraying him to steal a Blackwall AI housed in the neural matrix located in an old Militech bunker. There are many endings to the DLC, but the ending that truly shows her power occurs should V side with Reed and betray Songbird. She ends up tapping into the Blackwall again, going cyber psycho with the Blackwall's powers. She's captured by Max Tack before being freed by Reed and V in an attempt to shut her down. The carnage we see her perform is unmatched, using power that one could not ever dream of obtaining. Her use of the Blackwall leaves physical deterioration in her wake, and people hit by her attacks die instantly. She is stopped in the Militech bunker, pleading for V to end her life. What happens to her is then left up to the player. So-mi was one of the best netrunners to live prior to encountering the Blackwall, and we see the true power she obtains as she is taken over by the rogue AIs that she mingled with in her missions. Whether it is truly Songbird or her shell being commandeered by the AI, doesn't matter. She was almost unstoppable. Until V stepped in. Raish Bartmoss first appeared in Cyberpunk 2013 and is responsible for one of the biggest technological attacks in the history of Cyberpunk. Born in 1992, Bartmoss started netrunning at just 4 years old. Due to his inexperience, he used his real identity on the net, but by the time he realized the danger that could pose, he was already so good it didn't matter. He taught himself and experimented with every single interface that was available at the time, becoming a master at every form of netrunning. In the 2000s, he started writing software for a number of corporations, but his plan was always to double-cross them and run away before they could catch him. From here, he'd clean his record and move on to the next hit. In 2004, he began working for CCI Development, creating his legendary Demon program for them. This program allowed a system to incorporate several other programs as subroutines. For example, connecting cameras and turrets to operate under the same node. A bunch of nerd shit, but they act pretty cool in the tabletop games. Anyways, he was eventually fired by CCI for placing a political movie in their code. Within the week of his firing, he fried their system and caused them to go bankrupt. He would then sell the source code of the Demon program to a collection of companies, making so much money that he would never need to work again. At the age of 17, he met Spider Murphy and ended up training her in netrunning. Raish and Spider, along with a few other runners, then started performing vigilante netrunning operations, doing things such as lynching netwatch hacks without profit, as they believed it was the right thing to do. They became known as a group of people that could do what others thought impossible. Shortly after, Pacifica was founded, and Raish, along with Cunningham, began netrunning all throughout it. In the early 2010s, he moved into a con-apt building. As a form of security, he arranged for everyone without a neural implant to leave the building, and arranged for a wave of corporate workers with neural processors to move in. Here, he secretly installed a hidden subconscious personality program within them with the goal to be able to control them. By 2019, it became operational, and he began using the tenants in his building as a method of surveillance and security. In 2014, an algorithm was released onto the net in order to provide a uniformed interface, making it more accessible to common folk and netrunners alike. While everyone else unplugged, Raish stayed in, planting the Rabbids virus into its programming. They would lay dormant for almost 10 years. In 2020, Raish's heart stopped, dying in his netrunning cooler. His life support machine sensed this, supercooling his body in order to preserve it. He was connected to the net at the time, which allowed him to continue living virtually. A year later, he would be contacted by Cunningham's digital ghost and convinced to assist Militech in the Fourth Corporate War fighting against Arasaka. He managed to trace the location of the master program of Soulkiller, leading to the eventual attack on Arasaka Towers. However, he also had a signal tracked, resulting in a corporate raid on the building. Before they managed to take him out, he was able to get Spider Murphy into a chat room, confessing his love for her before releasing the Rabbids virus into the net. This caused the data crash. When it released, 78.2% of the net was infected, causing net traffic to stop completely and losing corporations billions of dollars as the stock market completely destabilized. Insane amounts of data were corrupted, and countless military-grade AIs were unshackled, allowing them to mutate into seriously dangerous entities. This led to Netwatch creating the Black Wall, an AI with the sole task of blocking off certain sectors of the net that had been taken over by the rogue AIs, salvaging what they could from the remaining net. Over 50 years, Bartmoss was still considered a legend, and regarded as one of the greatest netrunners to ever live. In 2075, a contract with a cryogenic freezer he used to run in expired, leading to it and his corpse to be disposed in the municipal landfill, and 2 years later he would be discovered by the mercenary V. A runner from the age of 4, Raish Bartmoss may not have been physically as strong as Morgan Blackhand, but his netrunning skills made him quite possibly the most dangerous hacker to ever live. Even in physical death, he continued his fight against the corporations and eventually led to the fall of the entire net as they knew it. Truly powerful. This one will most likely be a shorter one as we don't know much about Aguilar, but the myth between them makes him one of my favorite characters, so I'm including him. Aguilar appears in Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty as V gets opposes them for a side quest involving Vargas. Aguilar also appears as male or female depending on the gender of your V. Due to this, I will refer to them as him since my playthroughs are with a male V. Our knowledge on Aguilar's history is minimal, but what we do know is that he's from Cuba. Sometime around the 2020s, the Cuban government presumably collapsed as the corporate wars caused South America to become incredibly unstable. This allowed for Cuba to become a haven for cartels dealing in things such as drugs, BDs, and cybernetics. Aguilar operates as a hitman for one of these cartels and has been doing so for decades prior to 2077. It's said that Aguilar has a minimum of 10 kills per continent, and that Valentinos scared their kids to obey by saying, "If you don't quiet yourself, Aguilar will." Now you may be asking yourself, but Professor 6, 10 kills per continent is pussy numbers compared to V, and you are correct. But these are not just random people on the streets. Aguilar is a hitman that is sent to take out high-priority targets. We're talking politicians, CEOs, high-ranking military people. It would be like if V solely started killing people on the level of someone like, Kurt Hansen or Rosalind Myers. Although considered the ultimate assassin, Aguilar has also been used as a negotiator, allowing his reputation and presence to calm down heated disputes. In the game, you're tasked with impersonating him to infiltrate Kurt Hansen's wake in order to set up the new leader of Dogtown. The mere fact that Aguilar was welcomed to Hansen's wake is indicative of his legend, as it was an incredibly private ceremony for one of the most powerful leaders in Night City. It's said that every time someone in Havana lights a cigar, Aguilar extinguishes a life somewhere around the globe. Someone who can hold that power over the most powerful people in the world is, in my opinion, worthy of making this list. First appearing in Cyberpunk 2013, Cunningham is possibly the only netrunner who could give Raish Bartmoss a run for his money. We know very little about her early life, but we do know she started her journey not only netrunning, but writing code. Using this money, she began body sculpting herself to enhance her beauty and upgrading her tech to allow her to dive deeper and longer into the net. Shortly after the founding of Pacifica, she would begin running the region with a famed netrunner, Raish Bartmoss, calling these her best netrunning memories. Sometime before 2013, Alt was poached by the ITS Corporation, although very little is known about them, not even sharing what ITS stands for. Here she began developing technology for human AI transfership. Around this time she also met Johnny Silverhand, entering into a relationship with the Rockstar. 2013 is when we get some specifics on her life, as this is when she made a breakthrough in her research on the transfer and containment of consciousness. The unnamed program she developed was able to take a user's mind and contain it in the net, operating independently from their physical body. ITS took this and developed it further into a weapon, later becoming known as Soul Killer. Instead of transferring personalities, Soul Killer's prime objective was to imprison them. A few months later, Alt was kidnapped by Arasaka agents in the hopes that she would recreate the Soul Killer program for them. She agreed and recreated it from memory, always scared that they would turn around and use it on her once completed. Due to this fear, she created a failsafe that would allow her to escape the program. The kidnapping led to an enraged Johnny Silverhand to begin a riot at Arasaka Tower, using it as a diversion to lead a team into the tower to rescue Alt. Around the time of the riot, Alt's fears came true as they attempted to imprison her in the program. However, she was able to successfully fend off the attack, killing Arasaka's netrunning team. As she did this, Silverhand's team managed to break into the server room, killing the man behind the imprisonment and disconnecting Alt from the mainframe. However, unknown to Johnny at the time, disconnecting Alt killed her in the process. He left the tower with her corpse and was contacted shortly after by her construct telling him where she was and not to come looking for her. 8 years later, during the Fourth Corporate War, Alt's digital ghost would be contacted by Militech, who asked her to help them destroy Soul Killer. She agreed in hopes of getting revenge on Arasaka, convincing Raish Bartmoss to assist in the attack. However, as we know, this plan failed, resulting in Bartmoss's death and the capture of Alt Cunningham by Arasaka, forcing her to develop the third edition of Soul Killer. In 2023, we see the attack on Arasaka Towers, and we know how this story goes. Johnny gets killed, the tower gets blown up, but before all of this could happen, Spider Murphy managed to contact Alt in the tower's mainframe. She told Alt of Bartmoss's death and was given a piece of Soul Killer to use later if needed, before scattering Alt into the net with the hope of retrieving her someday. This piece of Soul Killer is presumably what was used to retrieve Johnny's engram, though it is unknown how it ended up in the hands of Arasaka. In the years following the Fourth Corporate War, Alt would create a digital haven for the victims of Soul Killer, being called the Ghost Town. In 2077, we meet what is originally believed to be Alt beyond the Black Wall, although it is explained that this is false. The engram reveals that she is nothing but an image of Alt and not actually her, explaining that when Johnny disconnected her in 2013, her consciousness was split from her engram. The engram maintained the image of Alt Cunningham as a way to not go insane over a prolonged period of time. She tells V and Silverhand that if they're able to get her to Mikoshi, Arasaka's data fortress, that she could make an engram of V and transfer it back into his body. This would kill V, but allow the engram to overwrite Silverhand's engram, effectively fixing his problem. Should the player side with Alt and attack Mikoshi, she kills all of the employees in the tower and envelops all of the victims of Soul Killer into her. She tells V that she can perform the task she offered, but it would not reverse the damage done to his body, giving him about 6 months to live. At this point, either V or Johnny merges with Alt's engram, and they all go with her to exist beyond the Black Wall. Alt Cunningham was already one of the most gifted netrunners to ever live, but her power only grew more once she became a digital ghost. In the end, Alt truly may have been the most powerful piece of technology in the entirety of Cyberpunk. Okay, so this one's a stretch for a few reasons. The main one is that the Angels are from a Cyberpunk spin-off game that is not canon, and the other being that we know next to nothing about them. However, in concept they are so f***ing cool, dude. So, the Angels are a group of 12 elite solos that operate out of the Crystal Palace. The Crystal Palace is a space station located in between the Earth and the Moon, maintaining a stable position between both. It caters to the 1%, having things such as casinos, restaurants, luxury apartments, and can be seen during the Path of Glory epilogue quest in which V spacewalks to it in order to perform a heist of some kind. Anyways, it's said that the Angels leave the Crystal Palace to perform highly specialized operations anywhere around the globe, using the positioning of the palace to drop in and exfil later. They're said to be the best of the best, and as this Reddit user says, are the boogeyman that Adam Smasher looks for under his bed before he goes to sleep. They all have heavily specialized one-of-one cyberware that makes Adam Smasher look like baby food in the process, and are seen as one-man armies. Their missions are so secret that they would have to kill you if you even caught a glance of them in passing. Due to how little is known about them, many people believe them to be simple myths, but in their canon, which again is not the canon of the 2077 timeline, there are a dedicated number of solos that do believe that they are up there. These guys are no joke, and I truly wish they were canonized just so we could actually see them in a newer aged medium. Here's hoping we go to the Crystal Palace in the next game, though the odds are pretty damn low. I said previously that these entries were not in any particular order, and that's true, except for the last 3. These final characters are some of the strongest people in existence, genuine freaks of nature, and all most likely meet a tragic end. David Martinez is the main protagonist from Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the Netflix-produced anime. David was born to Gloria Martinez in the back of a moving ambulance as she was attempting to reattach the arm of an edge runner who had lost it in a fight. She felt her water break, so she finished her procedure, then told the edge runner to swap seats with her, delivering her own baby on the gurney. In a brutal yet fascinating situation, the edge runner used the mantis blade located in his newly attached arm to cut David's umbilical cord. This was the start of a relationship between David and Gloria that would cement her parental love. Growing up in Santo Domingo was hard on them both. David grew to believe that he was destined for something greater than the H4 mega building they lived in, but Gloria just wanted to see her son live a good life. At one point, David pissed off the son of a 6th Street gang member so badly that he pinned David down and started beating him. He beat him so bad that he broke his own hand on David's face before starting to cry uncontrollably. Although he was covered in his own blood with a destroyed face, David couldn't help but laugh at how much of a bitch this kid was. He laughed for almost an hour, giving him street cred in Santo Domingo, causing the neighborhood to never touch David again. Shortly after, due to Gloria's work with REO Meatwagon as an EMT, David was admitted into Arasaka Academy, selling XBDs to his classmates on the side. One night, David got his hands on an illegal braindance showing the death of Lieutenant Colonel James Norris, a cyber psycho that was killed only a few hours prior. In this BD, Norris used a military-grade Sandevistan to kill many NCPD officers before being taken out by MaxTac. The day after, Gloria would be accidentally killed in a vehicle conflict between the animals in Arasaka. Upon going home, he discovered that Norris's Sandy was amongst her possessions. Having lost everything, David took the Sandevistan to his flipper friend named Doc, who agreed to attach it to David if he could keep it after David inevitably died. He used this tech to beat the shit out of a school bully, getting expelled in the process. This is when he met Lucy, an edge runner stealing shards out of people's necks on a train. She attempted to take David's as well, but he used his Sandevistan to stop her, piquing her interest. Before long, she took him under her wing, training him on how to steal chips and performing petty crimes together. They grew a bond as mentor and apprentice before Lucy revealed that she actually got close to him to find more information on the Sandy. One night while David was sleeping, he called her edge runner partners Maine, Dorio, and Pilar to confront David about his tech, claiming that it was stolen from them. This is where it was revealed that Gloria was taking cyberware from her patients and selling it to keep David in school. After some back and forth, David convinced the group to allow him to join, showing an extreme tolerance for cyberware. He proves his worth in a data heist and is welcomed with open arms to the edge runners. Here, he's introduced to Faraday, a high-profile fixer. They are given a job to kidnap an Arasaka executive named Tanaka, and the best way to do so is lure him to meet with Jimmy Kurosaki, the ex-BD curator that created the very brain dance that David watched prior to getting his Sandevistan. The mission goes sideways as Jimmy manages to kidnap David, torturing him with brain dances before he is saved by Dorio and Lucy. This is around the time that David and Lucy begin a romantic relationship. After Tanaka's abduction, Maine began showing symptoms of cyberpsychosis, ignoring the pleas of his lover to downgrade his cyberware to improve his condition. Before long, NCPD and MaxTac would track down Tanaka and launch an attack in an attempt to retrieve him. Here we see Maine go cyber psycho, accidentally killing Dorio and telling David to get out of the building before he blows it up. David retrieves Maine's gorilla arm cyberware programming as well as one of his arms to bury. Months later, we see David leading Maine's crew, with a number of cyberware upgrades including gorilla arms similar to Maine's and a projectile launch system. The group performs many jobs ranging from hostage rescue or data recovery, but it wouldn't be long until he starts to slip. On one job, he would accidentally kill a secretary that reminded him of his mother, starting a series of episodes where he would freeze. Soon after that, he would collapse in his apartment, and upon being brought to a Ripper, he would be informed that his cyberware was destabilizing and actively killing him. A short time after, Lucy would be abducted by Faraday unbeknownst to David. He's then given a mission to steal inventory from a Militech convoy, but this is actually a trap for Faraday to earn some recognition with his newly appointed bosses at Arasaka. As they stopped the convoy, a legion of Militech vehicles descended on the group, and David was convinced to enter a cyber skeleton housed in the vehicle they took cover in. The skeleton would help the group escape, but almost assuredly cause David's cyber psychosis to begin. He takes out the Militech forces with ease before making his way to Arasaka Tower to rescue Lucy. Before long, a cyber-psychotic David would arrive at the tower and cripple Faraday, before coming face to face with Atom Smasher himself. He manages to get Lucy out of harm's way before starting his duel with Atom Smasher. They battle, giving the rest of his friends, other than Rebecca, the ability to escape, but David is killed in the process. David died at only 18 years old, but in the process cemented himself as a hardened Night City legend. Not only did he have a natural ability to use loads of cybernetics, but he also held his own against Atom Smasher for a time. First appearing in Cyberpunk 2020, Atom Smasher is a legend amongst solos and honestly most people in Night City, having his popularity skyrocket with the release of Cyberpunk 2077 and Edgerunners. Born in New York City, Atom was known from a young age to be the toughest motherfucker on his block, eventually joining a gang. After the collapse of the United States, he would become the leader of this gang, before losing his gang goons to the US Army, inspiring him to enlist. He learned much in the armed forces, spending 6 years in the Marine Corps before being dishonorably discharged due to insubordination. In the following years, he would pick up mercenary work in New York, snowballing into more dangerous jobs such as extractions, demolition, and even assassination. Everything changed for him in 2015 while employed by the New York branch of Arasaka. Their task was simple: steal a piece of tech from a rival corp. but during the mission, Adam was maimed by 2 rocket-propelled grenades. He was rushed to the hospital where he died, before having his brain reanimated. What was left of him was brought to the hospital by his team in a backpack. This is when Arasaka proposed a deal to Adam. They would give him a full-body conversion in return for a 15-year contract operating solely for them. In Adam's words, "They figured I'd just walked into some bad luck and they liked my resume, performance record, skill, good looks, and all that." He was very aware that if he refused he would die, and with no concerns about losing what little humanity he had left, he agreed. He was allowed a period of freelancing to get used to his new body, falling into a period of killing anything that crossed his path, from armored soldiers to military vehicles to children. This was the beginning of his metal over meat mentality. Adam very quickly became famous on the eastern seaboard, taking every job that was brought to him with one stipulation: collateral damage was required. The majority of his missions were from Arasaka, with one having him take a 40mm grenade to the chest point blank, knocking him off of a 9-story building. He then got up, returned to the roof, and ripped the soldier's head from his neck. He went into each mission without wearing any corporate markings and a different faceplate for each operation. This is also around the time his one-sided rivalry with Morgan Blackhand began, seeing him as a threat to his metal over meat worldview. By 2020, Adam considered himself a true Borg, with next to no real flesh remaining on his body. He got his hands on a multitude of high-end equipment, from the Magnum Opus Hellbringer to the Cybermatrix reactive body plating. In 2023, he was employed by Arasaka to lead strike teams in the Fourth Corporate War, slaughtering communities of Militech enemies as well as their families. Later that year, he would lead 2 squads to take out the Militech forces attempting to storm Arasaka Towers. He ambushed Johnny Silverhand's team, cutting him in half. From here, he went straight to the roof to taunt Morgan Blackhand, holding the head of his still-living comrade Shaitan in his hands. As previously stated, no one knows the outcome of the fight between the two, as it was interrupted by the nuclear explosion that caused the Night City Holocaust. Following the blast, Adam went dark for many years, only hearing rumors of a quote unstoppable metal juggernaut being spotted around the globe. Every now and then he would return to Night City, teaming up with Rogue every now and then, funnily enough. Sometime in the early 2070s, Smasher would be assigned as Yorinobu Arasaka's bodyguard, as well as being placed in charge of carrying out the corporation's dirtiest work. In 2076, we see his role in Cyberpunk Edgerunners being dispatched to deal with the borderline cyber psycho David Martinez, who was in possession of an experimental Arasaka exoskeleton. After a back-and-forth fight, chase, and crushing Rebecca under the weight of his armor, Adam executed David with a point-blank shot to the skull, exclaiming that he actually had some fun. A year later, still operating as Yorinobu's bodyguard, he was promoted to Arasaka's head of security, as Yorinobu had assassinated his father and taken the throne of CEO. Later that year, the mercenary V would storm Arasaka Tower, either alone, with the help of the Nomads, or with the help of Rogue. Located in the Mikoshi access point, Adam would have his final duel against the likes of V, with the player being given a choice of either killing him or sparing him, but let's be honest, who the hell lets the guy live? Adam Smasher was originally the last entry on this list because I initially saw him as the most powerful person in the entire IP. However, his defeat at the hands of one character made me change my mind, leading to our last character on this list. V is an alias standing in for either the male character named Vincent or the female character named Valerie. There's been much discussion about which one is canon, but I don't truly think they'll ever canonize the gender of V. Due to this, as I play the game as a male V, I'll refer to them as a dude. V's origin is chosen by the player, either being an ex-Arasaka Corbo rat, an ex-Nomad from the Backers, or a street kid from Watson. After a fateful meeting with an ex-Valentino named Jackie Wells, he would begin a 6-month spree of small-time mercenary work. All of this would change when the team consisting of him, Jackie, and their netrunner T-Bug were chosen by the fixer Dexter Deshawn to perform a heist on Konpeki Plaza with the goal of stealing a relic from Yorinobu Arasaka for Evelyn Parker. That's a lot of names. We all know how this goes, as they are able to steal the relic before witnessing the murder of Saburo Arasaka at the hands of his son. They attempt to flee the hotel before taking a fall, damaging the relic and gravely injuring Jackie. In an attempt to stop the relic from destabilizing more, Jackie slots it in his neck. They sneak or fight their way out of the plaza before Jackie dies in their getaway car, slotting the relic in V. Upon meeting with Dex to discuss their plan, V is shot in the head, having his body dumped at Night City's landfill. Due to the relic still being in V's head, however, he was revived, attempting to crawl his way out of the garbage. This is when Saburo Arasaka's ex-bodyguard, Goro Takamura, finds him, executing Dex in front of him before taking V to Victor Vector's clinic. Here, V is informed that the relic has begun overriding his neural network, and that slowly he will die and the relic's consciousness, Johnny Silverhand, will take over his body. The relationship starts out rocky, with Silverhand demanding that V kill himself. This sparks V's blood crusade to find any way to save himself. With the help of Judy Alvarez, a braindance techie, he is able to track down Evelyn's employers, the Voodoo Boys, and find some answers. Here they go past the Black Wall and make contact with the AI called Alt Cunningham, and are informed that she cannot do anything to help without the power of Mikoshi behind her. V then follows a few different leads, siding with the Nomads to kidnap one of the developers of Soul Killer, Anders Hellman, before learning he cannot do do anything, and helping Takamura kidnap Hanako Arasaka in an attempt to get Arasaka to help stop the Relic. He also has a soiree in Dogtown, getting mixed up with agents and the president of the NUSA. Through the manipulation of Song So-mi, V manages to take down the ruthless leader of Dogtown, Kurt Hansen, and another potential life-saving choice opens up. From here, we see all the different endings V can choose. These include siding with the Aldecaldos, storming Mikoshi, killing Atom Smasher before leaving Night City in an attempt to find outside help, siding with Hanako Arasaka, storming Mikoshi, ending Yorinobu's reign, and then traveling to the Arasaka orbital station to receive medical help before being informed he can either choose to live for the next 6 months or allow himself to be uploaded to the Secure Your Soul program, becoming an engram himself, siding with Rogue, storming the tower, killing Atom Smasher, meeting with Cunningham again, being given the choice to either let Johnny stay in V's body or saving his body, living for the next 6 months, going in alone, running a suicide mission that has the same outcome as siding with Rogue, then becoming the new king of the afterlife before being hired to perform one last mission heisting the Crystal Palace, deciding to, quote, put everything to rest, saying goodbye to Johnny and killing himself on the roof above Miss Cisa Soterica, or going to the NUSA with Solomon Reed, going under the needle and entering a 2-year coma, being saved but losing all of his cyberware, returning to Night City to be a normal citizen. V accomplished more in a short span than most solos did their entire lives. There has to be due to the Shard, he can slot more cyberware than even David Martinez, he actively becomes a one-man army, possibly the only person in the world who could survive storming Arasaka Tower alone, and being the only person to kill the fully realized Atom Smasher. The motivation of losing his best friend and slowly losing himself causes him to become a freak of nature, mowing down hundreds to thousands of people to find a cure. It's true that part of that is due to him being the playable character in game, so he gets a little leeway due to gameplay, but even his canon actions cement him as a bad motherfucker. He is, in my opinion, fully deserving of the most powerful position. That's the video. Hope you enjoyed. I know my past few videos have been Fallout related, but this channel is meant more to fulfill my fascinations in the video games I'm hyperfixating on at the time. I love Fallout, but it's not something I want to build an entire channel around, as I feel there's so much to offer in other games, plus it really helps me stop burnout. If you like the video, please consider liking and subscribing. As always, thank you for watching. Tell your mom you love her. 6 is out.